Morning. Jina langu Gigi. Tarehe 25 Septemba 2018. Nabii alitoa unabii katika nchi za Afrika. Nimeona upungufu wa mazao na upungufu wa chakula. Amen.
Nafisa Hamid and her family had hopes things would get better for them after the removal of Sudan's longtime leader, Omar al-Bashir. But a year and a half later, prices of basic goods are still soaring, and Nafisa, who is disabled and makes falafel or bean cake to support her family, is finding it harder to make ends meet.
Of course, this life is very hard. Prices are increasing by the day, and some days we eat, some days we don't.
A week ago, the Sudanese government declared a state of economic emergency. The move followed a sharp decline by the Sudanese pound against the dollar. Since then, inflation has risen to a record 167%, with prices of essential commodities like bread and sugar rising to more than double. Long queues for bread are now visible almost everywhere.
We are forced to wait in queues for more than 3 hours at a time to buy bread. Just 10 pieces of bread. The elderly who can't stand for long are really suffering. We are all suffering.
The inflation has also affected the provision of aid to tens of thousands of people displaced by the weeks-long flooding in 17 of Sudan's 18 states. Aid agencies say they're forced to deal with a huge shortfall in funding.
Actually, it has been quite catastrophic, if I may. When we receive, let's say, $1, only 25 cents of that maximum is what we're able to use. Because of the inflation, last July, inflation was at 144%. In August, was almost 167%. So that means our ability to buy things is only 25%.
Sudan's transitional government blames the decline of the currency on what it calls a systematic operation to vandalize the economy by those opposing it.
We will crack down heavily on those trying to manipulate the markets. We will be united in doing this as a government. We will also introduce regulations for import and export of gold.
Yet some people are blaming the government itself for the crisis. In April, it raised the minimum wage from $5 to $60. That is the largest pay rise in the country's history. But broke and with no resources of its own, the government opted to fund the increment by printing more money, setting Sudan on a path to further economic decline. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo recently raised hopes of better economic prospects here when he announced the possible removal of Sudan from its role of state sponsors of terrorism, perhaps even before the U.S. elections in November. That would allow Sudan to shed its pariah status, attract foreign investors, and once again access credit from institutions like the IMF and World Bank. But diplomats say that's hinged on Sudan first normalizing relations with Israel, a bitter pill it may be forced to swallow to ease its own domestic problems. Mohamed Adu, Al Jazeera, Khartoum, Sudan.